to deal with every single day. Sarah Swegster, owner of Mums to Be, and Delith Raphael, owner and founder of Twins UK, are both mums of twins and are here with us today. Welcome to the studio. And of course, Nathan and Bethany as well, Sarah's children. How much of a nightmare is having twins?
It's not a nightmare, it's a shock. I mean, when you find out, I found out at 6 weeks, when you find out you're having twins or triplets, your whole life is, you have to be prepared that your whole life will never ever be the same again. Everything does change, and it's dealing with those changes that, you know, helps you cope.
Well, I say this, you know, carrying one baby is bad enough. I'm not a very good pregnant person, put my hand up. So, so the thought of having two just fills most people with dread. Did it fill you with dread?
No, I'm the opposite. I mean, I spent quite a few years going through IVF treatment, and I really wanted twins. So I was absolutely overjoyed. So I didn't have any problems per se, but I did go into labour very early. So in terms of pregnancy, I didn't go to 37 weeks, which is normal. So it was a difficult birth, but not a difficult pregnancy.
Now, you've both set up, obviously, these two sites and these two organisations. Why did you have such a need to do it?
For me, it was, I couldn't find equipment, I couldn't find prams, I just couldn't find anybody that could turn around and say to me, yes, this is going to work, you need this. And you go into national companies and you say you're having twins, and unfortunately you're kind of guided into this equipment that is a waste of money. It's great for one baby, but it doesn't always work for two. And when you're having two, there is the double expense, you know. And when people come into the store and I say to them, you know, what are you looking for? And they're like, oh, well, we need two of everything. I'm like, right, you don't. Yeah. You do not need two of everything. You can actually get away with one cot bed for the first 6 to 7 months of their lives.
Really?
You don't need Moses baskets. You don't need swinging cribs. You can actually really slice the cost of having one baby. I'll do exactly the same service for one baby, but for two, you can really notice the difference in cost.
And I think it's important to focus on where you need more than two of something.
Right.
So Sarah's very much an expert on twin buggies and things like that, whereas I deal with the more everyday practical essentials. And when I set the business up and you go for various advice, every single person says, well, isn't it just two of everything?
Right. And
it is so frustrating because it isn't. So if you're bottle feeding, it's 16 bottles.
Right.
You need to know, you know, and you need to know that.
So what are the sort of basics that people should know? Because I've got a little bit of a checklist from you guys earlier, and let's just run through some of these. I mean, obviously coping in the first year, connecting with other families, it says here.
Really, really important.
You've got to get
when
support.
You're pregnant, I think.
You've got to be able to talk to other people that are going through the same thing as you. I didn't have access to the internet 3.5 years ago, and for many people that's made a huge difference. You know, you're able to access the internet and say, right, you know, where can I find this information? And obviously there's TAMBRA and there's the Multiple Birth Foundation, but it's about getting in touch with, you know, an everyday person that's actually going through the same thing as you and can understand your feelings and is actually living it there and then. They are actually going through exactly what you're going through.
Nathan, I'm going to come and have a quick chat to you just now. What's it like being a twin? Who's your best friend? Bethany. Is that your sister? Should we ask Bethany who her best mate is? Who's your best mate?
My friend.
Is it Nate? Oh, sweet.
They're really close.
Are they really? And I mean, okay, we're talking a few of the things of, you know, the coping issues, but obviously there's the upside to having twins, right? You know, they must keep each other company.
Oh, it's definitely easier than one. People will say it can't be, and I'm like, no, I'd do twins again tomorrow, and I would.
Would you really?
My eldest is 10, and I remember bringing him up thinking, I can't play this game anymore. I can't do.
If I have to play Snap one more time,
or if I have to lay on the floor and play with this car, you know, imagination had just gone completely out of my head. And with these pair, they play with one another. They actually have proper playtime. You know, they're on the floor and they've got their cooking bits out, and you know, they're colouring and the whole thing. And when you first see them and they notice one another, that is just...
It's lovely. Isn't it?
It's lovely because, you know, people say, he's pulling her hair or something. Like, no, he actually been quite affectionate. You know, he's noticed her. And
it's beyond the first.
Brilliant.
I think the first year undoubtedly is extremely demanding.
Right.
There is no two ways about it. It is really demanding. But once you're beyond that and you do get more back from them, obviously they do start to learn a few words, they do start to notice each other.
The interaction
And
must
it's
be great.
Yeah.
That bit is lovely.
So what? Oh, nearly dropped that. So what tips would you have? You know, in terms of, as you said, getting your kit together and getting yourself ready. If somebody is, you know, about to give birth to twins, what advice have you got for them for say labour, the actual birth, and then beyond that?
I think they should have prepared a few months earlier.
Yeah, you're far too late now.
But because remember, you're not entirely sure when the birth's going to be.
Right.
Okay, so twins can come quite early.
Because yours did, didn't
Mine
they?
came at 30 weeks. Sarah actually went full term, 37. But you talk about 50% of twins come earlier than 37 weeks. So early preparation is really important. So the first thing most people want to do is get information. So that's what you do. Use the net, you know, contact places like TAMBA, Multiple Births Foundation, you know.
And Twins Club.
Twins
you know.
clubs, join a twins club when you're pregnant. Will really, really help.
Get in there that early.
Get in there
Definitely.
as soon as you find
You
out.
get real hands-on experience.
Yeah,
You can, you know, we've got babies at our twins club, and the youngest we've had is 6 weeks. And congratulations for getting out of the house at 6 weeks. I say to my ladies, you've got until about 8-12 weeks, and then I start ringing.
Yeah.
And I do ring them and say, where are you?
Yes,
you know,
come
you
out.
have no excuse
Yes.
now. They're 8 or 12 weeks old. Come on, get down here.
Well, I have to say, I went to a wedding this weekend, and my partner's first cousin is expecting twins, and I waddled in, you know, because I'm, you know, fairly pregnant myself, and I thought, you know, and then I took one look at her, and bless her, she's tiny, but the front of her is the size of a small cottage, you know, and I just thought, I've got nothing to worry about. I mean, you know, I just was so humbled by the fact that she'd looked for sensational, managed to come to the wedding, was looking great, and sort of, you know, doing it all, you know, at that late stage of pregnancy with twins.
It is. I mean, it does get incredibly uncomfortable for twins carrying that amount of weight.
I can't
by
imagine.
37 weeks.
At 37 weeks, I said to them, if they didn't induce me, I wasn't leaving the hospital.
You camping out. That was it.
I cried. Yeah, I was crying. I had SPD, which is where the ligaments in your pelvis become incredibly painful. I had crutches. I had tubey grip, the most. Hey, it gets sexy.
Sarah.
Tubey grip from there up, just to hold me, and it was just like horrendous.
And you do it all again?
I'd do it all again.
I wouldn't.
You know, the labour, that for me was like 10 hours, but it doesn't feel like 10. It really does not feel like 10 hours. I had an epidural, but you don't have to have an epidural. You know, you can have gas and air. And the myth is that a lot of women think they have to have a cesarean, and I'm like, you do not have to.
So you had a very natural birth
Yeah.
for twins, and were they both presented the right
No,
way and
only-
everything? Or?
Charlotte got my mommy.
Shocking. We'll get it in a minute.
The thing is, of course, they can't turn, but the difficulty is the second baby.
Right.
Is the first. If they're both head down, then natural delivery is a viable option. But obviously,
Bethany was head down, but Nathan wasn't. He was breech, he was up across here. And what happened was, when I gave birth to Bethany, he decided that he was staying in there. And he was just like, I've got all this really
get
You were quite
excited.
ready, weren't you? You didn't
know.
want to come out, were you? You were quite
No.
happy in there.
But although it was quite, you know, it ended up being a Von Two's delivery. And, you know, there was at that point, I thought, I was terrified by the cesarean. That is one thing that would freak me out. And the hospital were brilliant. You know, I said, look, I want a natural as possible birth. You know, I was having the epidural for the pain relief sort of thing. But they got him out 20 minutes later, and, you know, he was perfectly healthy. But, you know, I do remember actually closing my legs and telling him I was coming back next week to give birth. I've had enough, I'll just come back next week, you know, and thinking that was
and
it
some
all
people do.
over.
It can't happen.
Some people say, when you give birth to the second one, is it like the whole thing again?
Yes.
And it's not. It, you know, literally you give birth to the first twin, and then it's literally 1 or 2 pushes,
Yes.
and you've given birth to
Well,
the
you've done that in a very ladylike